Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. The time has come yet again, as it does every year around this time, to list my top 10 games of the year. So the top 10 video games of 2021, according to Mangg. Yeah, so this was... Personally, I didn't feel like it was a super stellar year for gaming. It was fine. I mean, it wasn't like, wow, this list was really tough to put together. I had to reach. But basically, I just had, like, exactly 10 that I felt were like, yep, that's fine. Those are good. It was pretty much just 10. I think the hits of this year were really freaking good. But beyond, that, there was just a lot of disappointments. There's a lot of just lameness. The PS5 in general. Oh. It's like the PS5 didn't exist this year. There's only one game on my whole list from the PS5 that's a PS5 exclusive. Whereas, I mean, I know it came out last November, but we had the whole year. But hopefully 2022, the PS5 is going to hit bigger. Beyond that, there are actually, indie games. There's a couple indie games on my list. I was really hoping for Silk Song this year, but maybe that will make the best of list next year. So overall, I wouldn't say certainly not one of the best years, but not one of the worst years in history. Just fine. I mean, we're still, they're all still reeling from COVID and all that. I think I just saw that Final Fantasy 16 got hit with a massive delay. So yeah. Let's move right into it. Not going to mention any honorable mentions till later, because that tends to spoil it. They're not on the list. Number 10. Oh, by the way, editing, I'll just use like one image per game, so just consider this a podcast. Number 10 is Diablo 2 Resurrected. I'm saddened myself somewhat. If you would have told me that the Diablo 2 remake would be number 10 on my best of list for that year, I would have probably thought first, like, holy shit, that must have been an insane year then. But no, and I don't even know if it's that Diablo 2 Resurrected is bad. It's just Diablo 2. And unfortunately, in my progression of my gaming life, Diablo 2 by itself, standalone, just doesn't really cut the mustard for me anymore. I think in general, I'm just growing less fond of ARPGs and Diablo clones and Diablo as time goes on. That's part of it, but also I would just say that it's dated. How could it not be? I mean, really, how could it not be after 20 years? And I like plenty of dated games, so I'm not saying that's purely the reason, like I said. But we've had other games come along that just do what Diablo did, and they do it in different ways, or they do it in better ways, such as Path of Exile, or Lost Ark, Last Epoch, Last Epoch is hopefully adding multiplayer soon. I don't think it'll ever be crazy popular, just because, I don't know. I mean, maybe. It's harder for me to gauge popularity. I generally look to what my friends play and stuff like that, but that's not a good example. But plenty of my friends still play Diablo 2 Resurrected now on a daily basis, because they were Diablo 2 fiends back in the day, and they just sort of rediscovered it with Resurrected, and they love it, and they're grinding and they're farming it day in and day out, and they're trading with one another, and they're trading on the forums, and they're leveling up characters, they're PvPing. I mean, good for them. Clearly, there's still a market for it. But just like with WoW Classic, same thing. I was like super hyped, ready. I was like, yes, this is going to be awesome, just like the old days. The guy was right on both counts, really, when he said, you think you want it, but you don't. I mean, he got a lot of scorn for that statement. But the truth is, that's exactly right for me. I thought I wanted it, but I really don't. And I'm okay with that. It did make number 10, because I did spend some time with it. I got a character through hell, and we had a LAN party where we all just started fresh characters and played together for the night, and that was a lot of fun. And it was fine, but compared to how I was with Diablo 2 way back in the day, playing it every single day, it didn't quite hold up. All right, number 9 is Guardians of the Galaxy. This game really came out of nowhere. When it was first announced, I first saw the trailers, it was like, it felt like it felt like the other Avengers game. You're only playing as Star-Lord, and the gameplay did not look that incredible. But when it was released, holy shit. I will say overall, the gameplay, not that incredible, not that groundbreaking. But that's honestly not the big selling point for the game. The big selling point is the Guardians of the Galaxy. They're the characterization, the dialogue, the voice acting, the storyline. It's all just like on point. It's not MCU Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's still, for me that's never read a Guardians comic ever, and never heard of them before the MCU. That's still like recognizable characters to me now at this point, and it's just enjoyable. It's just fun. That's just what it is in general. It's just fun. I'm generally a gameplay first kind of guy, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I don't know how much I'd play it in the future or anything like that, like replayability and all, but I think this is a great step. If the Avengers game was a tremendous misstep, Guardians of the Galaxy was a great step forward. And I'd love to see all sorts of like comic book games just with that sort of care and without microtransactions and always online and all this bullshit. Just give us good single player Marvel games. I mean, they could make gangbusters on that shit. It's insane. So I'm hoping that with Guardians of the Galaxy, I think it sold decently well. I think they're finally realizing, compared to the fucking catastrophe of Avengers, there could be a market there. I mean, if you had an Iron Man game and a Captain America game and a fucking good, awesome new Hulk game, and there's just so many. There's so much. And there's plenty of good developers out there. You don't have to whore yourselves out and micro bullshit. Anyways, yeah, so it was good. It was solid. I'm glad I purchased it at full price, even though I don't think it's worth it at full price. I'm glad I did to just sort of encourage the pure, good single-player goodness. But definitely, if you see it discounted down the road at a nice, cheap price, you're looking for a weekend with the Guardians, it's a good time. Number 8. Surprising even me, I guess. Resident Evil Village. Generally, I'm very not into horror games whatsoever. But I've not played every new Resident Evil that's come out. I didn't play Resident Evil 3 Remake. But I tend to play a lot of the new Resident Evils. And yeah, Resident Evil Village was just really solid sort of action horror. It was an action game in a horror setting. And that's pretty much right up my alley, really. I know a lot of people are kind of disappointed that it's moving much further away from, like, real gritty horror, desperate survival horror stuff. And it's more just, like, shoot a bunch of things in your face. But I like it. Action horror is great. It's not Doom. I mean, it's not that far into the action category. You're still slow and, you're still just counting your ammo and all that for the most part. But yeah, it was just a fun romp through this sort of weird castle, village, dollhouse, just like European horror. And it was just good. I liked it. So if Resident Evil 9 is just in the same vein, that doesn't lean too hard into just like jump scare, dark horror stuff. Oh no, for the next 6 hours, you don't get any weapons. You have to run. Fuck that. If it stays in a similar vein, though, I'm definitely interested in the future of the series. And I've never been that much into Resident Evil. As far before, like, 4. So I guess at this point, I've been a fan of Resident Evil for longer than not. But yeah, I suppose. Not much to say about that, really. It's just good stuff. Number 7. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. This was a hugely hyped game for me. I mean, on this list, definitely one of my most anticipated games going into the year. Big fan of the Ratchet and Clank franchise. Played every game. And so, hearing that, there's going to be a brand new, feature-length, single-player Ratchet and Clank coming to the PS5 in all its glory, I was freaking hyped. In the end, slightly disappointed. I mean, perhaps I hyped it up myself a bit too much. It was good. I mean, it was damn fine. No doubt about it. It made number 7 here. But also, it was sort of safe. There really wasn't much about it that was original and unique and different. It was just like, yep, this is Ratchet and Clank on the PS5. Not that the series has ever really evolved that much. But in today's day and age, if you're going to be bringing back a series, or continuing a series after a good hiatus, reinventing the wheel is generally applauded. At least in my book. But yeah, it was very solid. I liked the story. For the most part, I like that it's split up. I actually did like the sort of female Ratchet, whose name I can't even remember. But I did like her. And it had definitely some good action. It had some good guns, and not shabby. I can't say much else bad about it other than that it was just kind of more of the same Ratchet and Clank. Part of me did want that. But yeah, I mean, it's not a 10 out of 10 game. Solid 8.5. And again, like I said, it's the only PS5 game on the list. So in the big drought of PS5 exclusives, it was a welcome sight. Without that, it would just be a desert over here. PS5 desert. But yeah, they could have done more. I wouldn't mind seeing the series continue and seeing them do a little bit more with it in the future, but I don't know. I don't know if they ever will. And maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should look at other franchises that they've got. Jak and Daxter, or the fucking Fox that I've never played. Whatever, Sly Fox, or I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I'll always love Ratchet and Clank. So, just a solid entry in the series. Probably not my favorite entry in the series, but they all blend together so much, I don't even know if I could pick out a single one. Number 6. It Takes Two. So this one actually won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Not that that really means anything. But I think it was very well liked. It was very well liked by those that played it in general. And so Lego and I played this on Two Brothers Play, after seeing how much rave reviews there were for it. And yeah, it's a great co-op game. It really is. In a day and age where dedicated co-op games are very few and far between. Dedicated co-op meaning like 2-player co-op. 2-player co-op is pretty rare. 4-player co-op, that's a dime a dozen. But for 2 people, a narrative, like a story-based video game for 2 players, that's rare. So, I mean, that was a perfect fit for Two Brothers Play. And yeah, we really enjoyed the whole ride. I didn't really care for the story. I mean, again, I don't generally care for stories. It was ripe for mockery, I suppose. There's plenty of jokes to be made at the game's expense throughout the playtime. But that's okay. I mean, that shouldn't be a knock against the game. If you like the story, good. If you can make fun of the story, good. It's only just like if it bores you to tears, then that's not good. So yeah. But for me, the big beauty of it was just sort of the variety. The game just constantly was switching things up on you. Every step of the way, every new area, every new piece of equipment you got, every new weapon, every new little mini game or puzzle. I mean, really, they just threw the entire kitchen sink into that game. And it was great. Not a difficult game. And I don't blame them for not making it difficult. You're looking for a 2-player co-op game that a lot of people are going to be playing with non-gaming people. You know, you're going to be playing with spouses, you're going to be playing with friends, family members, whatever, that are just not hardcore gamers or whatever. You want to have broad appeal. And yeah, so I don't blame them for it being not that difficult. I wouldn't have minded like a hard mode, but honestly, I don't know if Lego would have agreed to playing it on the first time on hard mode, no matter what I told him. He might have relented, but if it was actually really difficult, he would have been pissed. So it was probably for the best. But yeah, overall, I liked the setting and the story of their first game, A Way Out. But gameplay-wise, mechanics-wise, yeah, It Takes Two, really just a barrel of fun. And I look forward to playing it in the future with someone else. A spouse or something. Whether they're really into gaming or not, but let's be honest. If I marry someone, they're going to be into gaming. But yeah, I mean, even if you're not that into gaming, as long as you know how to handle a controller a little bit, you'll probably do okay, and it's just fun. Yeah, so really pleasant. Obviously, I don't think it was the game of the year, in my opinion, but I could see why it had such broad appeal and why it was so beloved. All right, halfway done. Simple as that. Number 5. Another co-op game. Back for Blood. So this one kind of surprises me that I ended up putting it on the list. I would not have thought that when it was about, when it was before it was released. I had never really spent almost any time with Left 4 Dead 1 or 2. I never really had like a dedicated group that played video games, really. Yeah, I've been a solo gamer for so long. So I didn't really have any nostalgia or anything for Left 4 Dead. So, to hear that they're coming out with a spiritual successor, it's like, okay. But ignoring any connection or whatever to Left 4 Dead, and just treating it as a co-op zombie horde shoot 'em up, it's just fun. The guns all handle really well and are really satisfying. And just taking a shotgun and mowing down a horde of zombies charging at you, it's just fun, in the same way that I love Doom. It's very similar. It's not quite as bouncy. It's not quite as vertical as Doom. It's not quite as fast-paced as Doom, but it's that same sort of just primal satisfaction of just letting off some shotgun rounds into some pulpy fucks. So, yeah, I got to play through the entire campaign with a group of friends. There were 4 of us, and there were some frustrating moments, definitely. It's not, we wanted to play on, like, the normal difficulty, like, veteran. But that proved to be just insanely difficult for us, because we're all kind of old. So we had to play through the whole campaign on Recruit, and even then there were a few moments that are just like, what the fuck? So I think the difficulty needed to be tuned a little bit. But overall, yeah, just really fun, satisfying zombie shooting action. I don't know if we'll ever revisit it. I know they're coming out with DLC and things like that. I'd love to know what, like, the overall adoption rate for any given game is for DLC. And I'm sure it varies wildly depending on the game type and stuff. Like a live service game like Destiny 2 or something probably has a higher adoption rate. Maybe. But like the Horizon Zero Dawn DLC, I mean, how many people bought that compared to just bought the original game? Or like Dark Souls 3 DLC. Because I don't tend to revisit games. I don't tend to buy DLC. It's very uncommon for me. So I don't know if we'll ever revisit Back for Blood. I don't know if I'll ever have another group or whatever to play through it. And I don't think I would ever want to play it on my own. Because if I'm in the mood for just like shooting things wildly and just frantically on my own, I'll just play Doom. Or Doom Eternal. But yeah, for what it was and the time that I spent with it with a group of friends, really just fun. One of the best co-op experiences of the year. But not quite the best. All right, number 4, Monster Hunter Rise. So yeah, only made number 4. I'm sure that will surprise some people. Monster Hunter Rise, part of the reason that it's so low is that it was on the Switch. Definitely a hindering factor to it. No ultra wide, no 4K, no 120 hertz, loading time bullshit. I mean, yeah, I don't really care to play much on my Switch. It exists for exclusives. And if I hadn't owned a Switch before, I would have gone out and bought one for Monster Hunter Rise. Because, But, yeah, overall, not my preferred experience. So I'm very glad that it's coming to PC pretty soon. But it was fun. It was damn good. It takes the same sort of makeover, and mechanical makeover that Monster Hunter World brought us, but it adds some new little twists, primarily in the form of the wire bug. And I was skeptical about the wire bug going in. I didn't think I would actually use it that much. I was like, it's just like this kind of grappling hook. I mean, how often am I gonna want to fly up into the air while I'm fighting a monster? But no, they added all these new techniques, and I didn't know that going in because I don't look into games beforehand. So yeah, the new techniques, a lot of fun, really makes the combat more engaging and more action packed and stuff. And it reminds me of the arts or whatever from fourth generation or whatever it was, and not quite that robust of a system, but yeah, definitely a great addition. And I'm gonna be sad going forward in Monster Hunter World 2 or whatever if the wire bug's not there. But yeah, but aside from that, I think the other reason that it's ranked lower, it's just sort of, I read about this. People are having a discussion about this on the Monster Hunter subreddit the other day. It's just like people were talking about how Monster Hunter fans tend to go back to prior games once they finish one of the new Monster Hunters. They're just like, oh yeah, I finished Rise, so I went back to Generations Ultimate or whatever. And then the discussion sort of moved into why, as a longtime fan, why am I spending less time with the newer games? Blah and blah blah. And somebody said because the core gameplay of Monster Hunter has never changed that much. I mean, yeah, we got the big makeover with World that made it much more modern. But the core gameplay loop has been the same since the first game. You go out, you fight a big monster, you carve it up, and you make new stuff to go fight more monsters. That's Monster Hunter. And no one really wants that to change. I mean, that is Monster Hunter. But as you play through each game again and again and again, and the years go by, yeah, I mean, it just sort of gets a little old. And I'm going to play Monster Hunter Rise on the PC. And, I'm going to start from fresh. I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to fight fucking Rathalos again for the billionth time. I'm going to fight Diablos again for the billionth time. All this sort of stuff. And I'm sure I'll have some fun with it. But as the years go by, yeah, I probably will fall more and more out of favor with Monster Hunter. Through no fault of their own. And really, they shouldn't change just for that fact. But yeah, it's sort of it's kind of similar to my comments on Ratchet and Clank, except I don't want them to reinvent the wheel because it probably, I mean, again, what do I know? I mean, maybe they could reinvent the Monster Hunter wheel and it would be incredible. And it'd be like, oh my god, this is the best game I've ever played. Um, I don't know. I don't know. But the big beauty of Monster Hunter Rise was that I got to play a bunch of it with Lego on Two Brothers Play. I got him into the franchise, and he really digs it. So we're going to be playing more of it once the PC release comes out. And it's a solid game. I got no real complaints about it. It's just, I don't know if a Monster Hunter game is ever going to hit number 1 on my best of lists going forward. Maybe. I mean, I'd love to be surprised, but I don't know. Number 3. Valheim. This was the big surprise hit of the year, I guess. Especially in the indie world. The fact that, like, 5 dudes in, I don't know what country, Sweden or whatever country they live in, Norway, I don't know. That they could put out a game like Valheim that just sold like hotcakes, man. I mean, hot damn was everybody on that Valheim shit. And I was, initially I didn't, I mean, it came out of nowhere. And I think I bought it just because it was like so cheap and everyone was raving about it. I was like, all right, let's give this a look. And at the very start, I was just like, seems okay. I think I did a stream of it, and it's like, all right. And then I didn't play it much, whereas I had a friend that just was playing it nonstop every day and with all his friends and just, oh my god, raving about it. And I didn't really put too much time into it. But finally, I started playing it with some other friends. And we ended up playing through and beating all 5 bosses, building up towns together and stuff. And yeah, it's quite the magical experience. It's got a lot of room to grow, certainly, and they're being very slow with it. So it might not come out of early access until like 2030 or something. But for what it is, for how small it is, for how cheap it is, it's just it's such an easy recommendation to pretty much anyone that likes any form of building or survival or exploration, you know, any sort of thing like that. It's not. It doesn't reinvent the wheel in anything, but it just does so many things right, and it does so many things simple and easy and just focused on kind of fun. Survival is not just like this desperate thing. I mean, survival is pretty easy starting out in Valheim. You don't have to worry about, oh, I need water. You don't really have to worry about, oh, I need to eat to survive and I gotta cook all these meals and, oh, I need shelter. Oh, they're gonna raid me every night. And, you know, it's very pretty chill. But then as you progress, you know, there's definitely some real excitement to be had in the combat and in the exploration of these sort of darker, more dangerous territories. Having the co-op there is great. You know, I tried it with Lego recently. We did a couple streams of it. A few streams, something like that. And we, you know, I could tell he really enjoyed it. And it was fun, it was fine. It's a big process, though. Actually playing through to, like, beating the 5th boss. That took my group of friends quite a while. And that was with me playing quite a bit on my own. Like, grinding for materials and things like that to give to them. So, it's not a quick little game that you just fire up once in a while. It can be, but if you actually do want to go all the way through, I mean, it does require some dedication. But But yeah, very fun. I can't wait to see how it develops over the years going forward. The modding community seems to be pretty decent. Even though I don't think the developers are too hot on modding. I mean, it didn't seem like it's not like they're handing out mod tools and stuff like that. But yeah, good stuff. Very good stuff. Number 2. The number 2 game of the year for Mangg. Very pleased that it's actually on the list, that it exists. Metroid Dread. Again, sort of came out of nowhere. I mean, no one knew that this really that this was in the making and was coming out, and then it came out very quickly. A new 2D Metroid game. A new 2D single-player Metroid game. Hot damn. That's just music to my ears. Incredible. And not only is it a new single-player 2D Metroid game, it's fucking good. One of the best Metroid games ever made. Oh my god. Also, interestingly, the most difficult Metroid game ever made. There is some debate with that, I would say. Metroid 1, the original Metroid on NES, can be pretty brutal. But more in just like an annoying way, not in like a holy shit, I need like perfect finger press. It's more just like the difficulty in Metroid 1 comes from the fact that when you respawn, you get 30 health. It's just bullshit. Because then it's very easy to die again. But yeah, overall, one of the hardest Metroid games, I think. And yeah. Very impressive stuff. It's not perfect. I'm not going to rank it as the best. Just because of there are some just annoying sections of Metroid Dread that I'm not really looking forward to redoing when I replay it. And most of that stuff comes from the Emmys, the enemy big robots that can one-shot you. None of those sections really entertain me that much. I'm never a big fan of mandatory stealth. And it's not... they made it nice enough so that it's not strictly mandatory stealth. You can just sort of blaze your way through, which is perfect in sort of the Metroid fashion. And I'm sure, speedrunners are going to have all sorts of insane tricks to blow through the Emmy section. But yeah, it's very easy, especially on your first playthrough, to just get grabbed by one of the Emmys and just get one shot because the counter's ridiculous and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, aside from that, the gameplay itself is just stellar. The sort of parry ability that they put in is just fantastic. The way that it handles, the new upgrades you get. It's pretty much everything that I'd want in a new Metroid game. They really knocked it out of the park. Boss fights, like I said, very difficult, but also satisfying in that sort of Hollow Knight vein, where, learning patterns and learning tells and things like that, and figuring out what to do in what order and blah blah blah, and then just rocking it. And the characterization of Samus. I know it got some complaints from some individuals, but I thought it was badass. Her just staring down Kraid and shit, and yeah, it's very cool stuff. I mean, I can't imagine they weren't inspired by Doomslayer a little bit. But yeah, it's just so great to see. With the Metroid franchise so kind of high and dry. Metroid Prime 4, who knows where, who knows when it's going to come out, if it's ever going to come out. So for them to just pop out Metroid Dread like that and for it to be so good, it's fantastic. It's just fantastic. And I got to play it on PC after buying it. I emulated it on PC. So I got to play in 4K, 60 FPS, and it looked great, ran great. So that was really sweet, too. That was also its own controversy. But fuck it, I paid for it, so I got to enjoy the best version. Because as I said, I'm not big on the Switch. Okay, so honorable mentions. I have to give an honorable mention to RimWorld because I spent a pretty damn good amount of time on RimWorld this year. I know it didn't come out this year, but for me it came out this year. I'm still uploading videos for RimWorld. And yeah, big sleeper hit for me. The sort of just freedom and creativity involved in that game, the different biomes that you can get involved in, and then the ideologies and all the mods. I mean, any game that's sitting around with over 20,000 mods, I'm interested in. So, yeah, I'm going to be definitely playing RimWorld on and off for years, because there's just going to be plenty to discover in that. I think they're going to be putting out more and more DLCs for RimWorld, and why not? There's so much more potential in that game. So, yeah, that was great. What else? Inscription. I know that made plenty of people's best of lists. It did not make my list, partly because I did get frustrated with it towards the end. But there was a lot of really creative, interesting ideas in that game. I definitely applaud what it did and what it tried to do and all that. Not exactly my complete cup of tea or anything, but a single-player horror card game is such a wild concept. The fact that it even exists is awesome. But the fact that it did so many things well is even more awesome. So, it didn't make my list because I didn't finish it and I didn't, I grew frustrated with it towards the end. But especially like the first act and stuff and just sort of that sense of discovery of like what is going on with this game. That was really cool. So, honorable mention. That's probably it for honorable mentions. I know a lot of people are going to put Deathloop on their lists. I don't know. Deathloop just never clicked for me. It says here I spent 5.5 hours with it. That's probably about right. I don't know. I think after 5.5 hours, you probably know if you like a game or not. And yeah, I don't know. It just didn't work. I guess another honorable mention, because it did finally release this year. That's Gloomhaven on Steam. Gloomhaven, the digital version. I actually put a fair amount of time with it, just sort of starting to play through a campaign. I didn't get tremendously far. It's obviously a very big game, and I've played through quite a bit of the tabletop version. But yeah, I would say overall the digital version of Gloomhaven is like the preferred way to play. if I was going to sit down with a group of people and like play through it, I'd probably just say let's do the digital version. It just handles so much for you, and it's so much easier, and it's the same experience in general. You just don't, you know, you don't get the tactile feeling of moving around pieces, but the headaches that it saves you in setting up and taking down and keeping track of everything yourself and blah 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 blah. Even when I played the tabletop version, I used an app to keep track of enemies and stuff. Because there's just so much going on in that game. So having everything be digital is just great. And so even if you're not into board games, if you're into like sort of tactical role-playing games, uh, check out Gloomhaven because it's the #1 game on BGG for a reason. It is just a really solid tactical RPG. All right. So then #1. I'm sure some of you have already guessed it. Not a big secret. To no surprise. #1 is Cataclysm. So yes, I'm cheating for the second year in a row by not having an actual game that came out this year as my #1. But I can't not have this game at #1. I mean, it's like it just nothing can compare. No game can compare to Cataclysm in my mind. It is the greatest game ever made. This just came out of fucking nowhere. I mean, it's been available for years and years now. But obviously I just heard about it this year. And man, I've sunk so many hours already into this game, and so much of my future life is going to be spent playing Cataclysm. I don't even know what to tell you. It really just is it's one of a kind. I put Cataclysm, and I say Cataclysm partly because if I said CDDA, you know, people don't know what that means, but if I say Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead, it's not really accurate because I tend to now play Cataclysm Bright Nights, but yeah, blah 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 blah. Most people, you say CDDA, Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead, what they're not going to know what the fuck you're talking about, so it doesn't matter. It's such a perfect Mangg game, I guess. It's so niche, and it's so, as someone that doesn't care about story and is only a gameplay first kind of guy, Cataclysm is the end all be all of gameplay first. The stories that do sprout up in Cataclysm are entirely like player driven. I mean, there are people that come up with like whole narratives of their Cataclysm adventures, but that's entirely them coming up with it. There are no stories really in Cataclysm, except the ones you make. There's a setting, there's a backstory, but aside from that, it's just you in the apocalypse. Good luck. So I don't know what else. I mean, at this point, I feel like I've said so many positive things about Cataclysm in the last few months. You're either like, you either agree with me or you're like, Mangg, shut the fuck up. But yeah, it's just, it makes me weep a little bit because I think it's the best game ever made. I mean, anyone asks now, Mangg, what's your favorite video game? The answer is Cataclysm. And I love it. But no one I ever will know like no friend or fan or anything that I ever will know will like Cataclysm because it's such a niche fucking thing. My only hope is to have kids. And the only game that they're ever allowed to play is Cataclysm. That's the only hope. Is just bar them from ever hearing about Fortnite or any of that bullshit, and just seclude them in a Cataclysm world. Like, oh yeah, so in 1978, they made the first video game. It was called Cataclysm. And it was so perfect that they decided, you know what? We're never going to make another video game. There's no reason. So this is what we got. We got Cataclysm. You can play it all you want. But, I mean, yeah, I'm sure, like I said, when I get married, I'll be playing Cataclysm. When I have kids, I'll be playing Cataclysm. When I'm growing old and gray, if I'm in a retirement home, I'll still demand to be able to play Cataclysm. I mean, again, something could top it. Anything is possible. I didn't know a game like Cataclysm even existed out there in the world, so who knows what could happen. But it's just the best. Every time I fire it up, every time I fire up a new character, it's just like this world of possibilities. And now, you know, I've started doing all these, like, interesting thematic runs and challenge runs, and, you know, the sky's the limit. The modding community, especially for Bright Nights and stuff, is great. And the, not even the modding community, but the developing community for both Dark Days Ahead and Bright Nights is great. They're constantly, you know, working on new stuff and new ideas and further developing the game. And it's what's even more insane about all this is that it's completely 100% free. You don't have to pay a goddamn dime to live in the world of Cataclysm. So yeah, I mean, I knew right at the start of this list that, yeah, Cataclysm's number one. It's so fucking good, Cataclysm might be number one next year. Just to make it, you know, make my point. But it, you know, a lot of games that I love, I'll try and push, like, friends to try it. Like Magic Realm, when I really got into that, I made my friends try and learn it. But Cataclysm, it's not worth it. Because I'll just be disappointed because I know they won't like it. And then I'll get pissed off at them. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I mean, I tried it with Lego, which was already a reach. But I'm glad he at least gave it a shot. Now, just for the rest of eternity during Two Brothers Play, he has to deal with me mentioning Cataclysm. Because it really does ruin so many other games for you. Anytime nowadays I think about replaying through Skyrim with mods and stuff, and it's just like, but it's not Cataclysm. It can't compare. How are you going to compare the crafting and the survival aspects and the exploration? So yeah, number one, easy. Probably the easiest number one I've ever had to think of for any list ever. There's such a gulf between number one and number two on this list. It's unfathomable. All right, I'm done. You get my point. But yeah, I would encourage you to check it out, primarily because it is free. I mean, no harm, no foul. But yeah, it's good. It's a good game. All right, so that's my top 10. Hope you enjoyed my podcast. 2022, definitely some very hype games coming out. Just since we're sitting here chatting for what's coming out next year that could hit this list. Elden Ring. Oh boy, that's a big boy. Horizon Forbidden West, Starfield. Sure it is. God of War Ragnarok. The new Suicide Squad game, which actually looks kind of cool. Breath of the Wild 2, yeah, sure it is. The Plague Tale sequel, that new Final Fantasy weird game that's all edgy and grimdark. And probably plenty of other things we don't even know exist yet. So, yeah, next year is looking to be pretty hot. Triangle Strategy. Oh, Project Triangle Strategy is supposed to come out next year. In March? What? Is this legitimate? This game? Are they really calling it Triangle Strategy? I thought that was just a fucking working title. No, this is on Nintendo.com. It listed as March 4th, so that's real. Wow, I didn't know that was coming out so soon. I guess I played that demo ages ago. I really thought they were going to come out with a different title. So yeah, that should be good. So yeah, next year should be pretty ripe. Definitely excited. Probably half of those games won't actually release next year, but that's okay. All right. So, my name is Mangg. This has been Mangg's Top 10 Games of 2021. And I will see you fine folks around.